Hey everyone, and welcome back to Small Screen Sagas. I'm your host, Nicole. Today I'll be talking about the TV show from season 1 entitled A Rock and a Farway. So I mentioned on episode 3 that I was like, oh, this episode was just okay. Episode 4, I really enjoyed this episode. And once again, I keep saying it, but this was now my 4th time watching, because when the show aired afterwards, I watched it immediately again. And then I watched season 1 again right before season 2 came out, and now I'm watching it for the 4th time for the podcast. So each time I'm catching more stuff, and each time I'm still enjoying it. So seeing that I've watched it 4 times within a year, it speaks to how well the show is, because I'm still enjoying it. We will do this episode just as I've done the first 3, which is go by character and kind of discuss from not necessarily least important, but like least screen time to the most screen time. So we're going to start off real quickly with Sara. And as I mentioned, it's not least important, because this is pretty important what we see happen to her this week in this episode. One thing I have to say about Sara is the audacity. The audacity of this girl to be walking around town, helping people, sitting over here, making lunches in the hospital, just living her normal life as if she didn't kill people. The audacity of her. But right now she is getting freaked out because her arm starts to hurt, and it looks like some type of worms are like moving around her arm. And then those it reminding me of Harry Potter when I forgot the lady's name in the 5th Harry Potter movie, when she made Harry write down I must not tell lies, and it engraved in his hand. That's sort of what it looked like happened to her arm. Because now those worms, it engraves, kind of like someone scratched it into her arm, kill the boy. And at the same time, this is at the end when they're all at the diner, and the only boy there is Ethan. So it says kill the boy, and she kind of freaks out, and then she starts to have a seizure. So I believe I mentioned either in the 1st or 2nd episode when Ethan had a seizure, I didn't really notice. I thought that he had a seizure because he was hurt, And then now she has a seizure. And I just want to say, remember these 2 seizures. I think they're important. I don't think now Ethan's seizure had anything to do with his injury. Just because her seizure, we don't even know. It came right after the thing on her arm. So let's just keep that in mind as far as the seizures go. Next, let's talk about Jade and Kenny. A few times throughout this series, there will be times where you're like, why didn't that character tell anyone this? Why didn't someone tell someone this important information? And Jade last week, or in the last episode, when he saw that the dead soldier in the cellar, we do see that he does tell someone. He tells Kenny what he saw. Now, yes, he is a little bit excited when he's telling this story. So he's not calmly telling it. He's just running through it all. I saw this and this. And Kenny's not really feeling him, or not seeming like he's taking it seriously. He kind of writes it off to, this place will make you see things. It will make you go crazy. And when Kenny's saying it, I don't think he really means, I believe what you saw. I think he thinks it was in Jade's mind. But Jade's like, you know what? You guys are sitting around here not trying to find answers. I'm not going to stop until I find answers. And that's when Kenny says, well, then you're going to break down. Because that's what this place does to people. If they can't make it work and can't live here, they'll go crazy. And we hear about a boy named Charlie, or a guy named Charlie, that Fatima later mentions to Julie. It's implied that he's no longer here. So he either could have died from a monster, or he couldn't handle the pressure of living in that town. And now we see something similar with Sara. So I get what Kenny's saying. I appreciate Kenny showing Jade that map and saying, look, we've all come from different parts of the U.S., but we all still landed here. And Jade's like, that doesn't make any sense. Kenny's like, nothing in this town makes sense. Let's just acknowledge that and stop saying this doesn't make sense or this is impossible. Duh. There's monsters here. So forget about the word impossible at this point. Anything's possible. But Jade says, you know what? He takes the radio and says he'll go off and try to figure it out, because he's smart and he's built his own software company from the ground up. He can figure this out as well. So we'll see where that goes. So Julie has her first night in the Colony House now that she had her choosing ceremony last week's episode. And she's not really feeling how things are done here. Like, she's sleeping on a couch. She wakes up to get her pillow taken from Trudy, who I love. And then Trudy, not only that, has her shirt on and says, yeah, we share everything here. I'm thinking, girl, you should have known. Look at the house. Everybody's doing whatever they want. People can have sex right there next to you while you're sleeping. So, yeah, I'm guessing that we share everything. That's the vibe. That's the culture of this colony house. And she's starting to think that she made a mistake. She even tells Fatima, I think I made a mistake, and Fatima brings her off and says, hey, look at all this laundry. When you're washing laundry, it's free pick. Everyone can pick whatever, and tries to cheer her up and really does a good job of doing so. Now, before she can fully cheer her up, right after that, after Julie just said, I think I made a mistake, Tabitha comes and tries to get Julie. And she goes, why don't you just tell Donna that you made a mistake? And her using the same words that Julie already had in her own head, that she even said, I think I made a mistake. It brought her over edge. It made her pissed off at her mom. And she's like, I'm not dumb. I'm not a little girl. You guys act like I just don't know how to make decisions. And I'm thinking, Julie, everything you're saying that you think they're thinking about you is exactly what you're doing. You just said you made a mistake. I'm trying not to judge too much because she is a child. She's a teenager, and their emotions are everywhere. And it kind of reminded me of me being a mother of teenagers. You really do have to be careful what you say with the kids, because like, they're just waiting for that word. They're waiting for the word to throw them over the edge. So you just have to be very, very careful with your words. And she chose that wrong word, which was mistake, versus saying, hey, why don't we tell Donna that now that we talked it out, or you've had time to think it over and you prefer to be with your family, versus she could have said it that way versus mistake. Not judging Tabitha for how she said it, but seeing Julie's reaction, I'm trying to say this is a different way that Tabitha could have said it, and it may have had a different reaction out of Julie if she said it somewhere else, or phrased it somewhat differently. So in the end, Fatima and Ellis take Julie under their wings, invite her into their room, and they give her a little section, her own little bed, some curtains for her own privacy. And I really like them bringing her in. She's gonna be like a little sister to them. And even when Boyd's having dinner with the Matthews later, he goes, I know Ellis is gonna take care of her. So he knows his son, and Ellis is being very, very nice, as well as Fatima, to Julie. All right, let's talk about Tabitha and Jim. So we know from the first episode that there was some tension in that marriage, and you can tell that something happened. But now we know what happened. Julie mentions Thomas and says, hey, we've all lost someone. We lost Thomas, but why aren't Ethan and I enough for you? And Tabitha goes, no, like you guys are. So you realize that there was another child. And then later on, Ethan also tells Victor, I used to have a younger brother. He died as a baby. And then not only that, Tabitha says our lives changed 14 months ago. So it does sound like, well, not does sound like, there was another child. His name was Thomas. He died. And Julie realized this trip really was just one last hoorah before the mom and dad announced their divorce, because they probably couldn't take the pain of losing a baby. And it's probably brought so much tension to the relationship. And maybe Tabitha or Jim, one of them probably decided, I want a divorce, or they felt like that was the best option. I'm assuming it's Tabitha, because it seems like Jim is still all in, and Tabitha the ones that's kind of like pushing back, or making it seem like she needs her space. So it's sad. Maybe we'll learn more, but that's what we know so far. But I do like that Jim and Tabitha sort of had this little moment, because earlier when Ethan went missing, when Ethan was talking to Victor and they were arguing, Tabitha and Jim, they weren't really getting anywhere. And then later on in the diner, when they sort of have a talk, that song comes on, the Joni Mitchell song called Blue. Tabitha goes, hey, you remember that summer in Texas or something like that? And Jim says, I feel broken, like I don't know what to do. And I think Tabitha hearing that Jim is just as broken as she is helps, because sometimes when something like a tragedy of that sort, everyone's going to react differently. Everyone grieves differently. So if Jim seemed like he was holding it together, but Tabitha feels like she's breaking apart, she might have thought, oh, Jim is not grieving as hard. He doesn't care as much. And maybe that's what brought tension to the relationship. Her thinking she cared more than Jim. But Jim is now probably telling her, like, he's saying, I'm broken. I may seem like I'm putting it together, but I'm broken here. So they kind of hold hands and have a moment. She says, we will figure it out. So I like that moment with them. I do want to bring up the music coming on. I think there's going to be significance, especially since they recognize that song. The music has played before. I don't think I paid attention to the songs, so I'll start paying attention to the songs because clearly Tabitha recognized this song from a good memory in her past. Meaning, does the town, this whatever is happening, they know things about you that you don't even know that you remember, or they know things about you that happened prior to the town? Because this song playing and them knowing it, and it being such a, like, not a current song. I never heard of that song. So I don't know. I don't think it was coincidence. I think it was intentional, and that there's a lot more to this town than that we know so far. All right, let's talk about Father Khatri and Boyd. So they're kind of at odds right now because Boyd sort of wants to have someone to blame. He's like, hey, he's dead. You wanted him dead. And Father Khatri's like, I didn't want him dead. I needed you to follow the rules that you put in place, or this thing will come crumbling down. And he tells him, he says, it's not fair what you had to do. And she wouldn't want this and stuff like that. So who is this she? We see there's Boyd. We see he has a son. We don't see the wife. So we can assume that something happened with Boyd's wife prior to this. Especially how upset he gets at Father Khatri. He says, you're crossing the line. Shut the fuck up. You're crossing a line. Yet at the same time, Father Khatri is telling him, you saved this town. You found the talisman. You're the one that found the talisman. You saved us. Without you here, we would all be dead right now. And the price that you had to pay for this was too high. But at the same time, you still need to keep your shit together because everyone is depending on you. Now, last thing I'll mention with Boyd is we do see his hand kind of clutch up a little when he was out there cleaning up Frank's body, which was very, very gross and scary looking. I don't care how many times you see that. I would never get used to it. Like, I would freak out every time seeing a dead body like that. But his hand does clutch up. And before he has dinner with the Matthews, he does scream in the mirror. So I think that was him, that scream was him trying to keep it together. We'll see what's happening with his hand if his health is deteriorating, and we'll see where that goes. All right, now for the big story. I believe the big story this week was Victor and Ethan, mainly Victor. So we see Victor, Victor's weird. And I think as adults, you see a weird man and he's fine with talking to children, you're immediately thinking, okay, can he hurt this child in a way that you don't want them to hurt a child? Well, you don't want them to hurt a child anyway, but could he do something to this child, And that's where I think everyone's mind is going versus actually trying to get to know Victor. And I'm not trying to judge him because I probably wouldn't have tried to get to know Victor either. But now that I'm seeing Victor on the inside, I'm like, if you guys just talk to him like a regular person, you'll get to know him and you might even find out information and you can trade that information. Instead, you guys keep treating him like a creep and a weirdo and don't even get to give him a chance. Which, yes, he does some stuff that's like, that's weird. Why are you doing that? Yeah, he should have never took Ethan with him. He should have never been drawing Julie while she was sleeping without her consent. I think it's because of how he probably grew up. It seems like he did grow up in this town. We start off with a little boy with a lunchbox that Victor holds coming out of the cellar, and there's all these dead bodies on the ground. I don't see how you see that as a child, and that does not change you and kind of warp you into the adult that you become. But we see Victor kind of measuring out. I think he was doing it in the last episode as well. But he tells Ethan he believes the trees moved, and they moved 4 inches. And Ethan says, maybe we should tell someone. And Victor says, they won't understand. Because he already knows no one's going to listen to anything he has to say. They'll just think it's crazy talk. But he shows him a drawing of the boy in white and says, is this the same boy you saw? And he says yes. But that's when they were at the diner and Jen comes out and roughs him up and says, stay away from Ethan. But Victor says, F that, because as soon as they get home, he comes and gets Ethan and says, hey, I need you to take me to the woods. You need to help me find the boy in white so we can say hi and maybe get answers from him. And while they're out in the woods, that's when Victor tells Ethan, hey, there were 2 cars that came the first time, not when you guys came, not when your 2 cars came. The first time 2 cars came, he said, I was not that much older than you were. So it's confirmed that Victor has been there for a long time. And I question the timing in the series last episode. So is the time that they're here the same as the time in real life? And with Victor saying he's been there for so long, and he is older. So I do agree that the time has changed. But I wonder on the outside how much time has passed. I don't know. Because he does look like he came in the 70s or 80s or something. And current time, it does look like Julie and Jim and their family are from current day. So we'll see if anything's from that theory. And he says he was by himself a very long time. And I can only imagine, like a little kid by himself, and he just knew every night, go inside. Or did he hide? Because this was before the talisman came. So did he hide in that cellar? Is that cellar safe? Is that cellar have a talisman that we don't know about and he just stays there? I do want to know how Victor survived for so long as a child by himself there, prior to the talisman being available. Now, the title episode with the faraway tree, Victor shows Ethan a faraway tree. He says, you never know where you'll end up. You can even get stuck in one, which is important. And that's when Victor starts freaking out because he hears a dog barking, and then it's flashbacks to when he was a kid. But sure enough, at that same time, 2 dogs do come out barking aggressively at Tabitha and Jim. And Victor shoots his gun in the air to scare them away. And he had to point his gun at Jim because Jim was going to attack him and said, I told you to stay away from my son. But Victor says, I would never hurt him. It's not what you guys think, and kind of runs off. But when he gets home, this is important. He goes through all his drawings, so many drawings. I kept freezing and trying to look at each drawing as he was flipping through them. I see fire, but one that they went by pretty fast, but still you could see. There's a picture that he drew, a drawing that he drew. And it looks to be Tabitha because Tabitha and Ethan and maybe Jim. And Ethan, or the character that looks like Ethan, has a yellow sweater on. Similar to the same color yellow-orange sweater that Ethan has on present day. Which makes me believe that either he drew a future picture of them or something. I don't know. I think let's pay attention to Victor. That's all I can really say. These drawings are meaningful. They're important. Let's just take note. I don't know if that was if he drew a future picture or what, but he does put up a picture of all the people that are like dead on the ground. And I'm guessing he's sort of freaking out a little bit, it looks like, because he's realizing that a lot of these pictures he drew, he thought they were just dreams, but he realizes now they're memories. And maybe that's how he got through his childhood. He probably kind of made it seem like, oh, that was just a scary dream I had. That was just a nightmare. Versus, no, he really saw those things that he's drawing. Those are memories. And that's pretty much how the episode ends, with Victor digging holes / graves. And he tells Donna he's just getting a head start this time. So when he says this time, I'm like, oh no. Did he bury all those bodies when he was a kid? Like a kid had to bury all those dead people? I don't even want to imagine, because that is traumatic, and it explains a lot of how or why Victor is the way he is today. I'm really excited to keep continuing to talk about the show. So that's it for this episode. Tell me what you guys thought. Tell me if I missed anything important, anything that you saw, or theories based on this episode right here. But I think they let us know a lot on this episode. You know, the map, Victor, how long he's been there, the drawings, the faraway tree, how everybody shares belongings in the colony house. That's going to be important. You know, the graves that he's digging. So, and Boyd's health, as well as who is this she that Father Godfrey mentioned. So there's a lot of important stuff in this episode. I really enjoyed it. I think they gave us a lot, and it's just going to make us have more questions. So I'll be back shortly with the next episode. Once again, if you guys want to be part of the podcast, hit me up, host@theverdictsin.com. That's host@theverdictsin.com. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, @theverdictsin, and we'll talk with you later. Bye.